Passion Week.
Jesus Christ, God and man.
Sinless, yet scorned. 7 days wrapped up in intensity.
Not us for him, but him for us.
Passion Week.
A time to remember and to think and to ingest
what he did for you, for me.
Passion Week.
A donkey ride, a parade of praise.
Tables turned and tables set with bread and wine.
His body, his blood.
Do this to remember me.
Passion Week.
With his voice, he stepped on toes.
But then he bent low to wash toes fill.
The filth of friends he loved so well.
In spite of what would come.
Denial.
Betrayal.
abandonment,
doubt.
Like you, like me.
Passion Week.
Followers cry, crucify him.
Governors wash their hands of him.
Rebuked, spit upon.
nailed to a tree.
All because of you and me. Passion Week.
There's a lot of things that happen in the final week of Jesus' life. We see Jesus serving, praying, correcting, but ultimately we see him loving.
The term passion originally came from a Latin word that meant to suffer. And then when we compare that to what we typically think of as passion, or such a strong desire for something, it showed such a great contrast of what Jesus had to deal with. Knowing he was going to die and suffer brutally, but doing it because he loved us so much.
The Romans flogged criminals before they crucified them. They would tie pieces of bone and metal to the ends of leather strands. And while the Jewish law required that you couldn't flog anyone more than 39 times, the Romans had no such restrictions. Needless to say, by the time the flogging was done, Jesus' back would have resembled hamburger. Then after all that flogging, the soldiers took thorn branches, wrapped them into a crown, and set it on Jesus' head.
Jesus knew that his death would be physically excruciating. But I think the passion came out even more in his desire to do what he did in spite of knowing that he would be separate from his Father. I got thinking the other day that he literally has spent every moment with his Father forever. And he chose to spend time away from his Father to take on sin for us.
If I'm honest, I really honestly don't like to think about Passion Week. The thought of Jesus being beaten, mocked, hung on a cross all because of my sin is just something that I really don't like to process.
You need to be madly in love with something to be willing to die, but it was the only way to save that which you love.
So often we use phrases like, I would die for that person, or I would take a bullet for them, because we know this is the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate sign of love. I've often wondered if I would be willing to make that sacrifice for somebody else. And it's easy to think about the question, and it's a whole lot harder to follow through with it. And we don't know what we would do until we're in that situation. But Jesus did. Jesus made that choice long before he went to the cross, that he was going to sacrifice himself for you and I. And not just sacrifice himself, but in a painful and humiliating way.
While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And the thought of that, just that Jesus, when we are running away, when I am far from him, when I'm doing my own thing, when I'm living selfishly, actually dying anyway, is something that is unimaginable to me.
Every time I sin and ask for grace, I take Jesus' death for granted. Every time I commit the same wrong after wrong after wrong, I take Jesus' death for granted. In fact, Jesus loves me so much that in the midst of taking his gift for granted, he still calls me child.
we would do communion and foot washing, those two acts together actually. And it really was a reminder for us of what Jesus went through and kind of try to put us in his place so that we could experience some of what he was going through.
We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, or the life of Jesus will be revealed in us. I need to focus and meditate on this verse and let it sink in my heart and in my mind so that I remember what he did so that we truly could live with him.
I think we need to stop during this Passion Week and actually try to reflect the best that we can on what actually took place. Force ourselves to see Jesus doing something unimaginable for each one of us, suffering and dying an excruciating death just so they can have a relationship with us.
And that's something that I hope I can continue to think about as we go through Passion Week and through Easter. Knowing that he did it for me because he loved me so much and was so passionate for my life that I could live in eternity with him.